I love this next piece that we're going to do here. Love anytime we get to bring Dr. Cornel West into this program. It is an absolute honor to do so. So here we are. We have Cornel West weighing in on the idea of a Black monolith. And so this is to the Democratic Party, who believes that Black voters are a monolith and that they can just, dance and sing their way over into our hearts, and not have to actually give us any substantive policy guarantees. So let's take a look here at the extremely poignant words of Dr. Cornel West. This is from he teaches a course, The Historical Philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois. And you can actually check out the entire course online on YouTube at Dartmouth. And so this is a clip from that. And so they're literally, their thing is just Dartmouth on YouTube. You can find them there. And so he teaches his class on W.E.B. Du Bois. Cornel West, by the way, I mean, he has this amazing book. I'm afraid to pull it down right now, but Black Prophetic Fire, if you haven't read it, everybody should be reading that book. Every leftist should read that book. Every Black person should read that book. It's a window into Black history that we just don't get from our whitewash history books. And I highly recommend Black Prophetic Fire by Cornel West. Please do yourself a favor, check it out. You won't regret that. So it's one of I think it might be the last book that I've read from cover to cover, because yes, it is. All right. All right. So next up, we're going to hear from Dr. Cornel West here, and he's going to weigh in on this idea of homogeneity of any group, and as well as this idea of like the Black monolith.
That means you got a textbook understanding of a classic. That means you haven't dug deep enough. You haven't raised a larger issue. So by the time we zoom in on Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois, in light of the larger four traditions that we've talked about, in light of what it means to be human and modern and American, and we're going to add, as you can see, some other names, because there's never been a moment in the history of Black people or any other people that two people speak for the vast majority of the heterogeneity and variety and diversity of a people. Never, ever, ever. This is like going to North Dakota in the 1890s and engaging with our rich indigenous brothers and sisters, with all of that high quality conversation taking place among not just leadership, but the everyday people. And you pluck out one or two leaders and say, this is what was going on in Wounded Knee in 1890, so-and-so. No, these are human beings who have conversations, who have contestation, who have assumptions and presuppositions. And that's true for anybody, Irish, Italian, Black, red, gay, trans, whatever it is, Jewish, Catholic, and what have you. And that's also true for Black people. And that's why is that important? Because we saw from the first week, how does it feel to be a problem is to what? Problematize the people's humanity, to view them as a homogeneous blob, which means their individuality drops out and every Black person becomes interchangeable and substitutable, which means you only have to ask one what all the rest of them think. We can call that the HNIC phenomena. What does HNIC stand for? Head Negro in charge. You know, it can only be one at a time. Just hunt down that head Negro, speak for all the Negroes. Martin Luther King Jr. speaks for everybody. That's a lie. That's Malcolm X. What did Malcolm X call Martin Luther King Jr.? A European ass licking, I'm on camera. A European licking Uncle Tom. That's what Malcolm X said about Martin Luther King Jr. on television. That's called diversity in discourse. You see the point I'm making? Deep disagreement. By 1965, they're shaking hands. By 1965, right before he dies, They're planning to go together to the United Nations to bring a petition for the violation of the human rights of Black people as a twosome. Doesn't mean they didn't still disagree. So this is very important in terms of the proliferation. Remember I said the first week, once you historicize, once you contextualize, you always pluralize. And once you pluralize, you shatter any homogeneous conceptions of any group. No such thing as the Jewish voice, the Palestinian voice, the Arab voice, the Irish voice. No such thing. Always a variety of different voices wrestling, arguing, conversing.
That was Dr. Cornel West, just doing what he always does and just dropping massive amounts of knowledge. This was a really great lecture. Like I said, this was the third class in this lecture series on the historical philosophy of W.E.B. Du Bois. Again, you can check that out on YouTube, on the Dark Myth channel. So definitely check that out and see the full. It's about an hour long lecture, and the whole series is great, but that's an especially good episode there, or lecture. So much in there, so much to unpack there. I thought that he talks about this HNIC phenomenon. He says we all know what it really stands for, but we'll just say the head Negro in charge for purposes of advertiser or whatever the hell on YouTube. But head Negro in charge, this idea of like there being one Black leader at any given moment, and that there's only one, and it was Martin Luther King, and now we can only have one at a time. Muhammad Ali, you're the Black leader for now. It's just you, and we'll all listen to you, and whatever he says, that's what must be what all Black people think. Same thing. Martin Luther King, they did it, they try to do it, and they always try to prop up ones that are their politics agree more with the sort of with the as close to the status quo as they can get, of course, not making any shaking things up too much, of course. But yeah, that was just, he talks about the fact that you can't, there's no such thing as a singular, Black vote, or there's no such thing as the white vote, or the Irish vote, or the Arab vote, or the Palestinian vote, or the gay vote, or the trans vote. Like, people are they're not homogenous, and there's all differences of opinions that vary within these communities. And in order to really understand these communities, you have to understand a diversity of opinions. And the Democratic Party, they don't want to do that. They want to just say, well, Black people, they all just care about criminal justice reform, and that's it, because every Black person is a criminal. That's essentially their rhetoric that they use, where it's like, you talk about Black issues every time they have a segment in any of these debates, and they did a segment on race in America, the first thing that came up, and pretty much the only thing that came up, was criminal justice. It was all criminal justice reform, and they immediately jumped to criminal justice. And not to say that Black people don't need serious, significant, fundamental changes to our criminal justice system, but also that doesn't cover every Black person. Not every Black person is in jail, or, has a family member in jail. That's just not the case. And so you have to do more there's some Black voters that you're not going to reach by just talking about criminal justice reform. There's some Black voters that you're not going to reach by just talking about Medicare for all or Green New Deal. Some Black voters care about the environment. Some Black voters care about healthcare first. Some Black voters care about, minimum wages being raised and economic issues like that, or trade or immigration. There's a whole varying wide swath of opinions. You got Black Republicans out there. You got Black conservatives. You got Black socialists. Moi. And so there's a wide range of opinions. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do this show was to just add one more voice to show that we are out here, to make sure that I speak up for those who can't speak out, and, just other folks like myself that wanted to make sure that we were being heard, that we are here, let it be known. Because even in leftist spaces, I'll be real, even in leftist spaces, like even spaces I've been in on the left, they are by and large white spaces in these political spaces. And so we just need more Black folks to feel more comfort. And hopefully by seeing other Black folks in these movements and in the, out here in media, it will give a level of comfort to other Black folks that want to speak up and speak out and have their voices heard as well. And so I just wanted to add my voice, as I said in my intro video on this channel. Just want to add my voice to the chorus of voices that are already out there. Black, white, gay, straight, trans, cis, everything in between, atheist, Christian, Islamic, anything, everything in between. And that's why Cornel West, he always talks about, the Black tradition. And the Black tradition has a tradition of lift every voice and sing, right? Not lift one voice and sing. You lift every voice and sing. And that's what we really try to do, is to try to hear from the people and allow the people to be heard. And I just think that this is an important point that must be made over and over and over again to the Democratic Party. We are not a monolith, and you are going to have to start to work for our vote. You got to start working for our vote. And it's not just like they look at the number and they're just like a percentage wise. Well, 90% of Black voters voted for the Democrat, voted Democrat. And so they're just like, all right, well, we don't need to worry about trying to appease Black voters. We know we got them. They're going to vote for us no matter what. Because who else are they going to vote for? They're going to go vote for a Republican. You're going to go vote for Trump. So they play that game and they think that they don't have to do anything for us. I don't think that the Diddy and Charlemagne the God strategy is the correct strategy. They're trying to form a party called Our Black Party. And I don't believe that that's the right strategy for a multitude of reasons. But again, just don't got time to get into that right now, but that is not the move either. What you obviously know, everybody knows my move is build, local solidarity, build power through dual power in your communities locally, through democratic institutions. You extend democracy into the workplace, into our housing, build democratic workplaces from the ground up. Check out Cooperation Jackson and the work that they're doing in Jackson, Mississippi. It deserves to be talked about, and I haven't done it any justice not doing a segment on it. We will do a segment on Cooperation Jackson and all the amazing work that they're doing, the Black socialists in America are doing to try to support them. And they also, of course, support the general strike movement, which is an absolute must. We should all be ready and willing to show solidarity through a general strike. So I hope that everyone listening to this supports a general strike. If you don't, please get on board and be ready. If you can afford, of course, there's some people you can't, you can support it. You don't have to participate in it. Absolutely. If you're somebody who is absolutely in a situation where you will be destitute if you go on strike, like, we can't ask you to do so. But that's why the left needs to start to build things like mutual aid networks so that we can support our comrades when they do. If we want people to strike, we need to be able to financially support people while they're on strike. We have to have mutual aid funds that leftists can draw from so that we can actually build real power. So that's the kinds of things that we need to do. And the types of fundraising and that sort of stuff that we hope to eventually do on the show is to try to build these networks of solidarity and mutual aid on the left, because it must happen. It has to happen. Of course, we first need to get to the point that we can just support and sustain the show itself. So in order to do so, please support us. Patreon.com/radical democracy. There's links in the description box below. Just hit the link in the description box below and go support us there for literally $1 a month. I would love for one of you watching right now to head over there and do that if you're not already signed up, and only if you can afford to do so. That's the big caveat. I don't want anyone doing it if they cannot afford it. So please do so if you can afford it. Deeply appreciate it.